Could this finally be Denny Hamlin's year in 2025? And Ryan Blaney and Kyle Larson get into it at St. Louis as we look at all the action from Gateway. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well on this Sunday night. A lot to get into post St. Louis Gateway Worldwide Technology Raceway Edition, whatever you want to call it. I still call it Gateway. Of course, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. NASCAR content on a daily basis here at the Breaking Bob channel. But we do have, of course, some NASCAR playoffs to talk about as we're inching closer and closer to that championship in Phoenix. The second race in the round of 16 has come and gone. On the Illinois side of St. Louis, a lot of people do forget we are on the Illinois side as it's the Enjoy Illinois 300 from Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway. I still call it Gateway, regardless of that fact. I'm going to call it Gateway the rest of the video. Get over it. Denny Hamlin, your winner today, as he gets his fifth win on the season for 2025. 59 wins in the career for Dennis Hamlin. He always has been saying he wants to get that number 60 mark, tie Kevin Harvick. Looks like he's probably going to get there potentially even this year if this trend continues, as he's leading the Cup Series garage now with 5 wins. Doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, even though he is in his mid-40s now, chasing that elusive championship. Could this year finally be the year for Denny Hamlin? Well, one way or another, it seems like something seems to go wrong every year. But Joe Gibbs Racing is bringing the speed to start these playoffs, as Hamlin now matching Chase Briscoe with his win last week at Darlington. JGR sweeping so far the first 2 playoff races. Makes you think, man, everything goes right. Denny Hamlin could finally find himself in his position where he could be raising that championship trophy in Phoenix if everything just, the cards align. Now, a lot of things are going to have to go right. His teammates are going to have something to say about that. We'll talk about all of that, but for today, Denny Hamlin, led over 70 laps, one of the top cars. I think there was 4 or 5 cars you could make a case for today. But Hamlin was the one on that final restart with about 30 laps to go, 25 to go, got around Brad Keselowski on old tires before Chase Briscoe could. And it ultimately found his way to clean air, led, like I said, over 70 laps with that final stint. Wasn't really a challenger once he got to that lead there. It was just running those qualifying style laps, just getting it home. And a lot of strategy in stage 3, a lot of strategy in this race, a lot of different cars on different paths one way or another. A lot of tire strategy was a big deal today, as Goodyear, of course, did a tire test in June here at Gateway. Whatever they brought to the track today, it worked, and bringing right side tires next week to Bristol as well, different ones. Give credit to Goodyear. They're at least trying to do something with this next gen car, as NASCAR seems to have given up on the innovation side. Goodyear is tweaking the tire, making something happen, and the racing today was really, really good. You saw comers and goers, cars that were able to go 5, 10, 15 passes in the first 10 laps of those green flag cycles. Even if you were on 2 tire strategies, it was evident you had more pace. And even Christopher Bell early on in his race said, "Whoa, tires matter. What is this? This is rare." It was an interesting race, and I really commend Goodyear because, of course, these flatter, not necessarily short track style tracks like Gateway and Phoenix, but not mid ovals, that 1.5 oval either. They've seemed to finally kind of found a sweet spot potentially with the tire here, and this could make the racing in Phoenix in a couple weeks better. Something to note there, but overall, thought the racing was really, really good today. Denny Hamlin, of course, your winner. There's a lot of drivers on the playoff side, especially, we've got to focus on. I did mention about 4 or 5 cars that were probably the class of the field today. You've got Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, even Bubba Wallace was there for a little bit. We'll talk about a few of these guys. I guess let's start with Kyle Larson there because, he fast car, Hendrick Motorsports actually brought speed to Worldwide Technology Raceway for once Gateway. It was a miracle in itself that Hendrick had speed today, it felt like. Now, Larson was one of the guys that tested back in June, and all reports said that he was one of the faster guys out of that test. So whatever they found, it worked today. Now, got caught up as Bubba Wallace stacked up the field on one of those restarts in stage 3, kind of threw his strategy off a little bit there. Ryan Blaney was another guy, though, who really fast in practice and qualifying in the top 5, ran top 10 most of the race. But you expect Penske with last year, Ryan Blaney leading those final few laps in stage 3 before he ran out of gas and his teammate Austin Cindric won. Joe Logano the year before. Penske has had a good track record at this track. even though Christopher Bell did dominate this race last year for the first two stages, Penske has won those first two next gen, or the last two next gen races for Kyle Busch in 2022, I believe. But 2023, I guess. Anyway, it's been a long day. I just felt like the Penske speed wasn't quite there. The dominance that we've seen on these flatter mile and a half or mile ovals. Maybe a sign of things to come for Phoenix. I don't know, but you also got to consider this race has historically been running in the summer, and you change the date a couple months later. Maybe that had something to do with it. But Ryan Blaney still had speed today, and then an incident in stage 3 where Kyle Larson got close to him a couple of times, trying to, I guess, air pack the back bumper, and then got a little too close, cooked it into the turn, and came up into the track and took out Ryan Blaney, spun him out. No damage done. Blaney was able to continue, ended up finishing inside the top 5, but had to battle his way back completely through his day off there. You got to wonder what Ryan Blaney would have looked like if he was up there on that restart with Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski and Chase Briscoe. Instead, Kyle Larson kind of threw him into a ringer there that his whole stage 3 was just recovery and get as much as you could. Ryan Blaney waited for Kyle Larson's media scrum after the race, after his waiting by his car. Then they kind of talked it out, and Blaney said to the media afterwards, he'll remember it and move on. Larson said, it was no ill will of it, but I mean, two of NASCAR's bigger stars in the playoffs. I mean, this is what you want also. No malice, no ill intent. I don't think you're going to see any bad blood spill over, but this is also what you want to see, is these stars rubbing elbows in these playoff races, the traditionalist or not. I mean, this is what NASCAR's executives do want. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's anything to come of that. Ryan Blaney always seems to have this big mind of an elephant, but when it comes to actually taking it out on the track, doesn't really seem to dish out it as much as he talks about it. So we'll see if when it comes to these next few races, as it seems like these two cars are going to be battling when it comes to the championship in the round of 12, the round of 8. See if something comes of this with Ryan Blaney versus Kyle Larson, because that is a notable duo. Denny Hamlin's teammate Chase Briscoe, who won last week at Darlington, also had some really good speed today. Just sloppy, as he said in his post-race today. Couple incidents on pit road. He also got into Daniel Suarez, who, poor Daniel was just trying to get through the race early on, and then you had Briscoe kind of cook it into the turn, similar to Larson, although not as. Larson was just trying to race Blaney. Briscoe just misjudged the turn and went into Suarez. Tough for Daniel Suarez being a victim of circumstance there, but Chase Briscoe, even that, rebounding to a second place finish today through all the adversity. Dale Jarrett mentioned on the broadcast on the post race, this is what a championship team does. They overcome adversity with multiple issues and still get a top 5 result. And for Chase Briscoe to win last week, you could have thought, oh, they're going to phone it in, they're going to move on to the round of 12. No, they're here to win every single week, lead laps, and with the cars JGR is putting out right now, this 19 team could be one of those teams when we look at in Phoenix and see them in the championship 4. The signs were there all along. If you're really paying attention, the speed is there for that 19 team. It's going to clean it up a little bit when it comes down to these final, 6, 7, 8 races. That's really when it's going to matter. But, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez did have that incident. One other incident I do want to mention, though, because it was going to be an awkward family group chat tonight in the Dillon household, the Childers household. You did have Austin Dillon get into Brother Ty at one point in, I believe it was stage 2. Austin apologized on the radio. Ty was able to come back and then got spun again, hit the wall. But the Dillon's getting into it there. Something you don't see a ton. We'll see if Pop-Up has something to say as they have that film review on Monday. Of course, Kaulig has a technical alliance with RCR, so there'll be some sort of debrief, I'm sure. And we'll see if the brothers can make up or not after this incident on here Sunday in St. Louis. And I mentioned him earlier. I do want to give a shout out to Bubba Wallace, who was leading for a little bit there, and I believe early on in stage 3, and then had that issue where he was coming to the restart on the outside rows. I had something where I don't know if he missed a shift or spun the tires. I'm still not totally sure, but really threw his day on a rope there. But it shows the consistency. This was Bubba Wallace who said about a week or two ago at the media playoff drivers availability, saying that St. Louis was one of the tracks he was really nervous about in the playoffs. So to come away with the speed like that, when his teammate Tyler Reddick was running in the 30s, the 20s in the last part of the stage, It's at least a sign in the right direction for Bubba Wallace after it seems like he has just taken a massive direct step in the right direction this year in 2025. Of course, Charleston Nike on the pit crew box, a big addition for him. But Bubba Wallace could be one of those guys that could make a round of 8 run. Who knows? Maybe even a championship 4 run if all the things go right. There's a lot of guys that you really can look at the playoff grid here and say, if one thing here or there goes right, or if some guy has some issues there, they could be right in that contention for that final playoff spot here come Phoenix in a couple weeks. But there's some guys as the playoff bubble for the round of 16, or the round of 16 is going to cut to the round of 12. It's kind of evident right now as we go to Bristol with one more race in this round. Let's look at the full standings here. Of course, you got Briscoe and Hamlin locked in, and all the way down to, I think, Christopher Bell in 8th plus 32. You're pretty good there as long as one of these bottom 4 doesn't win. Now, you could have a Josh Berry and Alex Bowman win, and it would not shock me one bit at Bristol with the way their teams prepare the cars. But someone like Chase Elliott plus 28, Logano plus 21, Chastain plus 19, you're okay for right now. It's Austin Cindric at plus 11. You got to be a little nervous at Bristol. But any of those 4 guys, one incident in stage 1 or stage 2, and you're going to be sweating the whole rest of the night there. But for the bottom 4 that are out right now, Austin Dillon at minus 13 and SVG minus 15, you could theoretically still point your way in. You're going to have somebody have a bad night early on. And then you got Alex Bowman minus 35 and Josh Berry at minus 45. They have to win. They have to just throw the kitchen sink at the wall at Bristol this weekend in the hills in Tennessee. Alex Bowman, multiple pit stops went wrong for him today. What's been new of this playoff cycle for him? It seems like everything could go wrong. Well, Josh Berry had an incident today where he got tagged, and it was him and Chase Elliott racing there. They kind of got into it, and Berry, once again, 2 weeks in a row where he's had incidents and just thrown himself completely behind the ringer before he could even really get halfway through the race. And so for Josh Berry, a season that started off really strong, has had some lull in the middle of it, a disastrous playoff start. Then SVG also a self-spin, ended up bouncing back to 25th today, but was running about 15th, 18th when he spun there. That would have been okay. 25th, not going to cut it, as now he's minus 15 on that cut line. So for all those guys on the in the cut line right now in the cutoff danger zone, I don't think anything's going to change unless, like I said, something crazy happens, like a Ross Chastain or an Austin Cindric crash, or maybe, Chase Elliott or Christopher Bell has some mechanical issues and they have to sweat the whole night out, like I said. But we'll see what happens when it comes to Bristol on Saturday night next week as we get ready to put a bow on the round of 16 of the NASCAR playoffs. Race number 2 from Gateway, though, right behind us in the rearview mirror. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What you thought about today's race from Gateway. Of course, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video if you like what you saw. It does help me out a ton here at the Breaking Bob channel. And we'll be here as we lead up to the Bristol night race. It's the crown jewel. Who's going to take that sword on Saturday night in the hills of Tennessee? I'll be here to cover all the NASCAR content and news leading up. Until then, I'll see you next time. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.